The palace was the kind of building that made you feel small on purpose. Not cruelly, it wasn't aggressive about it, but with the calm architectural confidence of something that had been standing for 400 years and expected to stand for 400 more, and had very little interest in the opinions of anyone who'd been alive for less than a century. Lara stepped out of the land cruiser and stood for a moment just looking at it. White stone washed silver by floodlights, arches stacked on arches, a fountain in the central courtyard that caught the light and threw it back in pieces. Her photographer's eye composed the shot automatically. Wide angle, pre-dawn blue, the fountain as foreground, the palace as the thing that needed no frame. Then she saw the woman and stopped composing entirely. She was standing at the top of the entrance steps in a robe of deep burgundy silk, dark hair loose, the kind of beauty that arrives in a room before the person does. She was perhaps 30, perhaps older. It was the sort of face that age would approach respectfully and negotiate with, rather than simply take. And she was watching Lara the way a woman watches another woman when she is doing rapid and very thorough calculations. Beside Lara, she felt Karim go still. Not tense, still. There was a difference. Tension was visible. What happened to Karim was something that happened underneath the surface, like a change in water pressure. She wouldn't have noticed it at all if she hadn't spent the last 2 hours in close proximity to him and developed an involuntary sensitivity to his register. "Karim," the woman said. Her English was flawless, European accented, every syllable placed with the precision of someone who had learned the language as an instrument. "You're bleeding." "It's nothing," he said. "It's your face." She descended 2 steps. Her eyes moved to Lara with the smooth inevitability of a lens finding focus. "And this must be your..." A pause that was not accidental. "Guest." "This is Lara Voss," Karim said. "She was taken by Hassan's men this evening. She is under the protection of this house." "Of course she is." The smile was warm, practiced, immaculate, and contained within it, somewhere beneath the surface for those paying attention, the sharp edge of a woman who had not expected this and was deciding what to do about it in real time. "I'm Yasmin. Welcome to the Al Rashid Palace, Lara. You must be exhausted." "Little bit," Lara said. She was given a room in the East Wing. It was approximately the size of her entire New York apartment, with a ceiling high enough to require its own weather system, and a bed so architecturally elaborate she spent a full 30 seconds just locating the way in. A woman named Nadia, young, efficient, too tactful to visibly register the state of Lara's clothes, brought her a robe, clean linens, a tray of food she hadn't asked for but ate entirely, and the information that a doctor had been summoned for Mr. Al Rashid and would also attend to her if she wished. "I'm fine," Lara said. "Just..." She gestured at herself. "Desert." Nadia smiled with the specific warmth of someone who has seen stranger things than this and considers discretion a professional virtue. She left. Lara sat on the edge of the magnificent bed, ate the last piece of flatbread from the tray, and tried to construct a coherent account of the last 12 hours. She had been kidnapped. She had been rescued. She had gotten married. She was now in a palace. Her temporary husband was somewhere in this building having his face stitched, and there was a woman downstairs who smiled like a painting and looked at Karim like something she'd misplaced and intended to recover. Lara took out her camera and reviewed the 43 photographs again. they were still extraordinary. Some things, at least, were stable. She woke 4 hours later to the sound of voices in the corridor. Sharp, low, the specific acoustics of an argument being conducted at reduced volume out of courtesy for sleeping guests, but not quite at reduced intensity. She lay still and listened, not because she was eavesdropping, or not only because she was eavesdropping, but because one of the voices was Karim's and the other was Yasmin's, and the air between them had the quality of weather. Had no right to bring her here without telling me. You are not the person I consult about operational decisions, Yasmin. Karim's voice was quiet and absolute, like a locked door. I am the person who has been managing your father's diplomatic calendar for 3 months, which means I am the person who has to explain to the ministry why there is an American journalist in the East Wing. Then explain it. She was taken. She was recovered. She is a guest. That is the explanation. A pause. When Yasmin spoke again, her voice had shifted, softened, the argument replaced by something more careful, more intimate. Karim, I'm not trying to make this harder. I'm trying to protect you. The silence that followed was the kind that meant someone was deciding how much truth to spend. The dissolution papers will be filed today, Karim said finally. She'll be at the embassy by evening. This is already over. Footsteps. One set moving away. Then, after a moment, a second set, moving in the opposite direction. Lara stared at the elaborate ceiling of the East Wing bedroom and thought, dissolution papers filed today, at the embassy by evening. Which was exactly what she'd agreed to, exactly what she'd wanted, exactly the plan. She should feel relieved. She did feel relieved. She also felt, beneath the relief, something small and formless that she decided firmly not to examine. She was a photojournalist. She documented other people's lives. She did not develop feelings about men she had known for 5 hours, in crisis situations, in countries she was technically not supposed to be in. She was a professional. She was rational. She was also, she noticed with some irritation, listening very carefully for the sound of his footsteps to see which direction he had gone. They had gone toward the south corridor. She noted this. She noted that she had noted it. She put the camera over her eyes and looked at the ceiling through the lens until her heart rate returned to something she could professionally describe as normal. Breakfast was served in a courtyard that smelled of jasmine and old stone, where orange trees in terracotta pots threw coins of shadow across a mosaic floor. Lara arrived to find Tariq already there, eating with the enthusiasm of a man who considers every meal a personal gift, and Karim at the far end of the table, reading something on a tablet with a small, neat row of stitches above his left brow. "Good morning," Tariq said, as though she were a house guest who had arrived by conventional means. "Did you sleep?" "Some," she said. "You?" "Like a stone. I always sleep well after a successful extraction." He said this the way another person might say after a good workout. "Please, sit, eat. The bread here is extraordinary." "Miss Voss." Karim set down the tablet. Daylight was a different context entirely. She'd seen him by torchlight and car headlamps and the gray pre-dawn of a palace forecourt, and none of those had quite prepared her for the full version. He looked, in the morning light, like something a sculptor would attempt once and then spend the rest of his life trying to reproduce. The stitches, somehow, made it worse. "How are you?" "Lara," she corrected automatically. The micro expression again. Almost amusement. Lara, how are you? Functional, she said. I'd like to contact my editor and the embassy. Of course, after breakfast. My father would like to meet you this morning, if you're willing. Your father? She absorbed this. The sheikh? Yes. To welcome you, and to discuss the situation with Hassan. Your account of what you saw in the compound may be useful. His eyes met hers steadily. And to discuss the administrative matter, the papers. The papers, right. The dissolution. The end of the shortest and most logistically motivated marriage in Zafaran's recorded history. Fine, she said. She picked up a piece of the bread Tariq had recommended. It was, as advertised, extraordinary. What do I call him? Your Grace, for the formal address. He'll tell you to call him something else within 4 minutes. He always does. Tariq looked up from his plate. 3 minutes, usually. He likes her. Karim looked at his brother. He hasn't met her yet. No, Tariq agreed pleasantly. But I have. He smiled at Lara. He'll like you. She looked at Karim to gauge his reaction to this, and found him already looking away, back at the tablet, a slight tension in his jaw that might have been disagreement, or might have been something else entirely. The morning light caught the line of his profile, the careful architecture of a face that gave very little away, and somehow, in giving very little away, managed to be the most interesting thing in any room she'd put it in. She looked at her bread. She ate her bread. She was a professional. Sheikh Faisal Al Rashid was a large man in his late 60s, who wore his authority the way very confident people wear old clothes, so naturally, it ceased to be visible. He received Lara in a formal sitting room off the main hall, rose when she entered, and shook her hand with the directness of someone who had dealt with Westerners long enough to know that the gesture mattered. Miss Voss, he said, I am glad you are safe. Thank you for sending your son, she said. Both of them, actually. Tariq was, she chose the word carefully, a comfort. The sheikh's eyes moved briefly to Karim, who was standing slightly behind and to the right of her with the watchful stillness she was beginning to recognize as his default mode. Something passed between father and son that she didn't have the context to read. Please, the sheikh said, call me Faisal. Behind her, she heard Tariq, who had not been invited to this meeting and was nonetheless present, make a small, triumphant sound. She kept her expression neutral with considerable effort. 2 minutes and 40 seconds, a new record. The meeting lasted an hour. She described the compound, Hassan's face, the number of men, the vehicles, the route, everything her photographer's eye had catalogued automatically while the rest of her was busy being terrified. The sheikh listened with the concentrated attention of a man who understood that details were not decoration. He asked precise questions. She gave precise answers. By the end of it, she had the distinct sensation of having passed some sort of evaluation she hadn't known she was sitting. You have a remarkable memory, the sheikh said. Occupational habit, she said. I notice things. Yes. He looked at her for a moment with eyes that were an older, heavier version of his son's. I imagine you do. A pause. The dissolution papers are prepared. Karim will explain the process. It is straightforward. I want you to know that this house takes its obligations seriously. You came to Zafaran in good faith, and what happened to you was not the Zafaran we wished to show the world." He paused again. "I hope it will not be the only Zafaran you remember." She thought of the 43 photographs, the light on the dunes, the hawk in frame 17. "It won't be," she said. Karim walked her back through the palace corridors in a silence that had, she was almost certain, changed quality since the previous night. Less operational. Something more like the silence between two people who have run out of the easy categories and haven't yet decided what to replace them with. "The papers will be ready by 2, he said as they reached the corridor that led to the east wing. "A car will take you to the embassy at 3. Your hotel has been contacted. Your belongings are being collected." "That's very efficient," she said. "My father's staff are thorough." "And my passport?" "Already with the embassy. They'll have it waiting." She nodded. There was nothing wrong with any of this. It was all exactly what she'd asked for, delivered with precision, and what appeared to be genuine care. She should feel grateful. She did feel grateful. She also felt, with the irrational clarity that sometimes arrived uninvited, that 3 o'clock was in 4 hours, and 4 hours was not very long. "Karim," she said. He stopped, turned. The morning light came through a latticed window and fell across his face in a geometric pattern, shadow and brightness alternating, and her fingers moved toward her camera before she caught herself. "Thank you," she said. "I know it was..." She searched for the word. "Complicated. What you did. I know it cost you something coming out there. I don't know exactly what, but I know it did." He looked at her for a moment with an expression she couldn't classify, something that lived in the territory between acknowledgement and something more unguarded. "It cost nothing," he said. She almost believed him. She would have believed him entirely, except that just before he turned away, she saw his eyes drop, just briefly, just for a fraction of a second, to where her hand had almost reached for the camera. And something in his face shifted with the faint, tectonic slowness of a man noticing something he had not expected to notice. He turned and walked away down the corridor. She stood there for a moment in the latticed light, camera strap in hand, and told herself very clearly that 3 o'clock was the right time to leave. That dissolution was the correct and logical conclusion. That she was going home. At 1:47, 13 minutes before the dissolution papers were due, Nadia knocked on her door with a message on a small folded card. It was written in Karim's handwriting, careful, spare, unexpectedly elegant for a man of so few spoken words. It said, "There has been a complication. Hassan's men are watching the embassy. It is not safe for you to leave today. I am sorry. K." And below that, in writing that was slightly less careful, as though added quickly as an afterthought, "Also, my father has invited you to dinner. You don't have to come, but the cook makes a lamb dish on Tuesdays that I think you would want to photograph." Next chapter, Tuesday's lamb. She told herself she was staying because of Hassan. She told herself this several times. The lamb dish had nothing to do with it.